Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Move Me, Yoga, Food and Life. Today we thought we'd talk a little bit about the Football World Cup, which is taking place in Brazil at the moment. So we just wanted to start by emphasising just how big of a football fans we were. We both grew up with European fathers who adored football. We watched World Cups on TV from the age of 10. We watched World Cup qualification matches both on TV and in person. And fulfilling a family dream, Natasha and her family actually attended the World Cup in France in 1998. Then the World Cup in Germany in 2006 came round, and Natasha was a sports reporter for the actual World Cup. She actually tried to get a job with FIFA. She was enjoying it so much. Regretting not having applied for tickets for Germany, we agreed that no matter what, we would apply for tickets for the World Cup in South Africa. The time to apply for the tickets came around, and we were in the middle of our journey of awakening at the ashram, where we'd spent 3 months opening our awareness to something greater outside of our little selfish selves. And so we felt a little funny actually about applying for the tickets, sort of guilty feelings about is it the morally and ethically right thing to do. At first we thought we'd just apply because we said we would, but it would be okay because we wouldn't be successful in our application for tickets anyway, and so we wouldn't have to experience these guilty feelings any longer. But to our surprise, we got tickets. Of course, we now know that this is precisely how the universe works. We spent a lot of our time at the World Cup in South Africa trying to convince ourselves that surely, being the only football fans who were yoga practitioners, vegetarians, non-drinkers, and volunteered at an orphanage for abandoned HIV/AIDS babies, was enough to offset our participation in the immorality of the World Cup. But it wasn't. We arrived in a bus at a stadium, and immediately outside there was a township. And a township is a congregation of makeshift dwellings, generally from corrugated iron and whatever people can get their hands on, housing tens of thousands of people, often times even hundreds of thousands of people. And we actually visited one of these townships at one point during the World Cup, and I'll never forget, there were businesses like hairdressing salons operating out of rusty shipping freight containers. We also visited an apartment where 16 people slept, so crammed that some children slept on mattresses on the kitchen table. And the stadium construction costs and other costs for hosting the 2010 World Cup left South Africa in hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. So when we saw these townships immediately outside the stadiums, we found it very difficult to wholeheartedly enjoy ourselves inside the stadium whilst watching the match, knowing what lay immediately outside. It seemed wrong to be so, get all excited and passionate for 90 minutes when the reality was, when the World Cup was over, no one would remember anything that took part in that stadium, and the reality for the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people living in the townships would go on. Their nightmarish lives of poverty, abject poverty, would go on. So the World Cup, we experienced firsthand, exploits impoverished people, and then tourism during the World Cup often exploits animals as well. And in our case, for example, we visited a dolphin marine park, or a prison for the dolphins. So, flash forward to the World Cup being undertaken in Brazil at the moment. Leading up to the World Cup, there were mass evictions of Brazilians living in occupied dwellings where there were these large apartment block buildings that are empty, government and state owned, and people would simply occupy them because They couldn't afford the cost of rent, and they were taking matters into their own hands and breaking into these buildings. We'll post a link below with a video showing all of this. And there were riots because of the evictions, and the World Cup simply amplified existing problems in the country regarding government corruption, whereby politicians were receiving pay rises and package perks, whilst the impoverished majority of the country were slapped with hikes in the cost of public transport. And then you come to the corporations who sponsor the FIFA Football World Cup. Take McDonald's, the corporation arguably responsible for the most widespread animal cruelty in the world. Adidas, who only a couple of years ago were killing baby kangaroos to use their skin for their football boots. And Johnson & Johnson, who test most, if not all, of their products on animals. And these corporations, to name but a few. We recall going into this enormous FIFA merchandise store in South Africa, packed to the rafters with exorbitantly priced World Cup paraphernalia, all made cheaply in China, no doubt on very low wages and potentially in sweatshops. So there are people without a roof over their heads, without enough food to eat, and many even without access to clean drinking water, whilst the multinational corporations who exploit people, animals, and the planet rake in millions of dollars from the wealthy middle to upper class minority. Who in their right mind could support this gross, obscene, and inhumane inequality? Behind all the media hype, glitz, and glamour, the World Cup is just an exploitative industry like most others. Don't buy into it. After all, every dollar we spend is a vote for what we believe in. We've included some links in the description below for some news video clips and documentary films showing the lives of how much of the population in Brazil really lives, which we strongly encourage you to watch. So we thought by sharing our experiences regarding the World Cup, it might help other people not make the same mistakes that we did. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next video.